Hi, welcome to Bright Hope Creations. I'm Kara, and today these puffins are ready to say happy birthday to the narwhal. So here's our winter narwhal and our stud puffin sets. Mermaid for you, just the rock. Party animal, the cake and fork. Stitched mountain borders in white, and I used one piece of cardstock and did it on both sides, cut them on both sides. And then here are the stitched wave borders in Mermaid, Peacock, and Rainforest, and the stitched simple wavy borders in Narwhal and Storm Cloud. I'll use the Let's Toast pull tab add-on and some paper from the Snow Day remix. We'll start by putting together the background. So that piece of mermaid cardstock with the wave, that's as high as my waves are going to go. And I'm using these hills or these mountains as icebergs. So I'm just cutting them down and putting some in front of others to give it the look of jagged icebergs, and decide where I'm going to put those. And I want them on each side because my focal point, our narwhal, is going to be in the middle. We'll pop those up a bit out of the water, and then I'll take a pencil and mark where I have them so that I can cut those down. But I come back and I still do it differently than what I have marked, but you'll see that. So I cut them down, and now I'm just putting on some just squiggles on these icebergs in Copic Cool Gray 0 and 1, just to give them the look that they're not perfectly smooth. And then decide where they're going to go, and then I'm going to attach them together so that they're easier to work with. I did that to both sides, and now I'm deciding where that horizon is going to go, and I will ink blend the background. It'll be kind of like a sunset, and so I marked that, and then I marked below where I wanted that, and I started ink blending with abandoned coral and ripe persimmon, but as I went along, I got so heavy-handed with this that it looked more like fire than a sunset. So I had to flip over my paper and start again. And this time I softened up my blending and then just kind of came in with the persimmon first, the ripe persimmon, and then the abandoned coral, and blended off onto the glass mat a bit too. Then when I was rubbing back and forth, I realized it was getting darker on the sides. So I ink blended in the middle, came back to blend in that ripe persimmon, and it was just too close in color. So I decided to come in with the carved pumpkin, and it gave me the variation I was looking for. So now that I have the sunset all on there, I will put on my horizon and the icebergs and make sure I know where they are to go, and then I can put these waves on the front. And I just took strips of paper to make these waves, making sure that I had enough of that bottom wave so that I could cut it off where I wanted, and it's just a matter of adhering them. And I liked where they all were, so I flipped them all down together, put on some adhesive with my tape runner, and I'm going to save that bottom piece till later because I want to stamp on that the sentiment. So I can adhere the horizon. Now this horizon, I like it because it looks like light sparkling on the water in the background. Now, of course, this is a sunset, so I don't know if it would really be doing that, but we'll take some artistic license with that. I really like that look of it sparkling on the water. All right, so I'm stamping up my images with some jet black ink, which is Copic friendly, and then wipe those off. I will also stamp one more little fish, and it's time to put on that sentiment. So here is that bottom wave, and I'm deciding where I want that word birthday. So I put the have a Narly down and then birthday over it, picked up the birthday, moved out the have a Narly, and then stamped that with clear ink, and I'm putting on some white embossing powder, and I'll melt that with a heat tool. And now I can put on the have a Narly sentiment, and I'm going to take this ruler and butt it up to the edge of the MISTI so that I have a straight line there for the sentiment. I'll put some white embossing powder on that and melt that with a heat gun, and the sentiment will be all set. So now it's time to start coloring up these little guys, and I already colored one Puffin, but I'll show you how I colored him by coloring this one. So I used a W5, and I'm bringing in shadows with the W7. So under his wing and under his head, and then a little bit where his face changes from black to white. I blended in that with the W5, and now I'm putting on a little shading on his face and belly and darkening that up there and blending that out into the belly and on his face. And then putting a little darker W2 by the eye to show a difference between the cheek and then the eye, which is a little further away. Starting on the beak with the W3 and a YR16, and then darkening that up with a R08. And just blend that back in. And then next we'll start on this iceberg, and this is of course a rock instead, but we're going to make it into an iceberg with just a cool gray 1 and 0 like our other icebergs. And then the fork, which is a C1, and then keeping our colors, the flame and the cake are going to be that orange, and so are the fish. And I'm going to use a lighter one as well, the YR14, to blend that out. And then darken up the shadows with the R08 on the fish and make the candle red. And then the cake, just round it out. And blend that in with the YR14, and then give the shadow to the white icing with some warm grays. Now we can start on our narwhal, and I wasn't sure how dark I wanted to go, so I started with a W0 and colored him all in except for his belly, and then darkened it up with a W2, decided I can go to a W3, and putting in a few little shadows there on the left side and underneath where we would find shadows. Blend that in with a warm gray 1 and a little further in with the W0, and then I could start on a bit of texture for our narwhal. So here's the W3, and I'm starting to just put in some dots and little freckles. Since he has dots, why not freckles? And define that horn a little bit more. And then I decided, no, I could go darker. So here's the W5, and I'm putting in those shadows again. And now with a little more texture to it. So little dots, and darken up his little freckles there. And blend that in, put in some more dots right over the W5 to keep blending it out, and then blend them all into his body with the W1 so that they look like part of his body instead of on top of his body. And then I can warm up that belly a little bit with a 1 and 0 and finish out the blending and move to his scarf. And the scarf is colored with the same colors as the other orange images, but I was debating what color to color this scarf. I was looking at a lot of my recent cards, and everything seemed to be aqua and red, and so I thought, well, I gotta veer from that, and I only got one step away from red, and I kept the aqua. So baby steps, I guess. So I took all of the coordinating dies and put on some post-it tape there to keep them in place as I ran them through my die cutter. Once everything was cut out, I could piece it all onto the background. So first I'll adhere this final wave to that front panel, the waves panel, and then decide where that's going to sit. And I'm not adhering that yet because we're going to pop that up. And then here is the iceberg and one of our puffins who will be standing on that iceberg, and his friend over on the other one, and the little cake. I thought it would be good to add some orange down at the bottom of the card, bring that down, and so those fish are down there. And then here's our narwhal and his fork. So with the glue tube, I adhered the fish, and now this puffin over here, and then I'll adhere the other puffin with the little glue, and just his feet so that he's sitting on that iceberg. I'll put that all together at the end. So some glue on that cake and some adhesive on the iceberg, and then I'm going to tuck that between those two waves. So that'll be part of our front panel. And now for the piece de resistance, here is our fork glued onto his little fin there. And I just think that's so funny. And I was debating, should I make this into a pull tab card? I mean, I like to make them, and I think I just showed one recently, but you gotta have this guy popping out of the water with his fork ready for his cake. So I decided I would make one. So I'm deciding where to put that little slide die. So right at the, so you won't see it in the horizon, and then right above that I'm putting that notch, and I cut those out, and now it's a matter of putting my pull tab mechanism together. So it's a Z fold, folding it forward and then back on both sides, and taking a bone folder and just pressing that down so that it's well creased, and then from the back of the panel putting that through and opening up the flaps and making sure it comes up and down just fine. And I want to make sure that it stays straight, so I'm putting the sleeve on. I fold up the die cut at the score lines and then put a little glue on the tab, close that up, and I'll put some adhesive on the back of that, slip it through like a sleeve on the top of the mechanism down onto my card, and make sure that that pull part is straight, and then make sure it's adhered on, and it's all set. That's not going to move anywhere. And then I wanted to decide where on this front part to put my narwhal, and so I started with just a little adhesive to see where he was going to peek out. Oh, and I took that one iceberg off while I put everything through the die cut machine. I didn't want to press that down funny. So now I know where I want my narwhal, and he was right where I thought he would go, and I'm putting him on with some glue. Oh, narwhal went AWOL there. All right, now I'll press that on there and make sure it's glued on, and then with the pull tab in the lowest position, I cut off the excess part of it, and this is the little cap that goes on, the little place that shows you to pull up, but I want it to be the same color as the background, so I ran that through that same die cut, that die, to cut out the arrow. And I'll put on the entire little handle with some glue that onto the mechanism. And then once I have that glued on, I will glue on top of that the orange piece, the part that makes it look more like the background. And I'll just set that on the top of this little tab. So making sure he works It goes up and down smoothly, and I love how his little eye is just peeking out of the water there. Now I have a piece of craft foam about the size of my front panel, and I'm looking at that narwhal up at the top and figuring out how wide it needs to be, and I put it beside him to see how low my opening needs to be, because I don't want that foam to interfere with the narwhal as he moves up and down out of the sea. But placing the top panel on the foam will help him have a little space in there to move freely. I'm just adjusting my foam a little, and then I'll take the Lawn Fawn's double-sided tape and put it all over my foam. It adheres great to this foam, and then I can put it on both sides, take off that released paper, and adhere it to the top panel. So now this narwhal can pop out of the water with his fork to eat his cake. There he is. All right, so I put a lot of adhesive on the back of this and placed it on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. And our card is finished. Thanks for watching today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.